Welcome to our afternoon session of the combined Digital Publishing Summit and ReadMagine Online. I start by presenting our speakers. Cristina Musilani is General Secretary of Fondazione Elia. She's board member of Idea Lab and she's co-chair of the W3C Publishing Business Group. She spends time coordinating accessibility efforts in the publishing industry in Europe and outside of Europe. And Gregorio Pellegrino is technical manager as Fondazione Elia. Gregorio is a computer engineer. He participates in technical studies on international standards and he coordinates the consulting and training activities of Elia. I know Cristina and Gregorio since I started leading Idea Lab, in fact, and I must say it is always a great pleasure to work with them. So last week, Cristina and Gregorio presented a broad range of accessibility training activities of the LIA Fondazione. A third speaker was a beneficiary of such training, Paolo Casarini from Il Mulino. So this session was recorded and you can access it from a link in the current session page. Today's presentation is focused on something else, focused on one type of consulting, the certification of accessibility of ebooks produced by publishers. So Cristina and Gregorio will explain the why, the what, the who, the where, and the when of such certification process. Please.
Thank you very much. It's also a pleasure to be here with you. I know that there are a lot of friends in the audience. So I will start the presentation with some information about the foundation for the one who are new to us. And then we start speaking about certification. We are a kind of strange animal in the field of accessibility. Because we are an organization that has been created in collaboration by the Italian Publishing Association and the Italian Blind Youth. We think that, we have also recently added some other organization, that is the Italian Dyslexia Association and the specialist organization of the Italian Blind Union, who is the one who produced the educational textbook in different format, print and digital, and in a larger character and in Braille. Our goal is to promote the accessibility on the basis of innovation. So everything that we do is focused on the possibility to use technology to give print impaired people more access to publication and content in general. The foundation has also other members. We have all the most important Italian publishers who are members of the association, but we also have very small publishers that are interested in working on accessibility. And we also have as a member the most important Italian e-lending platform in the library world, because what we would like to offer to the visually impaired people is the same opportunity as any other reader. So the concept of LIA is that we don't want to create different version of the publication that are published by the publisher, but that the same book at the same time that is published for anybody can be also read by any reader with visual disabilities in different environments. So it can be bought in online store and can be accessed in the library world through the service offered by Media Library Online. We work in, as Laurent say, we are active in the international network of organizations who are focused on accessibility and in general in standardization. So we are part of W3C and we work in the publishing groups, but also in the working group who are focused on accessibility. We are part of EDR Lab and we are member of DAISY consortium. So what we do is also to be actively involved in the definition of the standard and in improving the accessibility in general in all the different organizations, in collaboration with all the other members of the same organization. We also offer, as Laurent say, consultancy training and services, not only for publisher, but also to other organizations. We are working also with bank. We have an agreement with the most important Italian umbrella organization in the bank area, because accessibility is becoming more and more relevant, not only for the publication, for the book industry, but in general for the access of the people to the content. We have experienced in this period that a lot of documentation or website or e-learning platform or this video conference system were not accessible to visually impaired people. And so what we want to achieve is that every person can have the same access at the same opportunity as any other person, following the request of the sorry, I forgot the name. The
WCAG.
The declaration of the right person of the right of every person should have. Why we are now today speaking about certification? Because certification is becoming more and more relevant, and from different point of view. If you are a publisher and you are working on accessibility, it's important for you to have the possibility to show the work that you are doing in this field, and so make your effort visible to all the actors in the value chain. It's important for the publisher, for the other actor in the value chain, to remember that accessibility means quality. So if you declare that you're working in accessibility and that your product and services are accessible, that means that you offer to everybody more higher quality services and products. Certification can also be important because you can describe what you offer in a clear way to your end user, and you can also describe in which way you comply with the requirement, with the legal requirement. It's also important along the value chain because any actor can know the characteristic of the product and the services that you offer, and so they can be sure that if you put on the market a publication, they can easily and without any problem distribute it and be sure that they comply as well with the legal requirement. It's important from the legal point of view because there are in US and in other countries, but it will be very soon required also in Europe, that all the publication and all the value chain related with the ebooks should comply with a legislation that is named European Accessibility Act, that foresee the fact that books, but not only books, also DRM, reading solution, metadata are in line with some specific requirements that are explicitly described in the law. And it's important because if you don't comply with this requirement, it may be possible that there are enforcement authorities, and it could be also some penalties. I am quite sure that if there is someone from US that know ADA quite well, and they know that if a website is not compliant, the issue and the penalty can become quite high. And last but not least, it's absolutely important from the end user point of view, because to know that the title has been certified or a website, it's important because they can be aware if they have to buy or to decide to access to a content, that the content fit their specific requirement. And so they can decide if they access or not to buy or not, for example, a publication. Or if we speak about education, for a teacher could be important to understand and to see if they want to adopt a title on the basis also of the fact that this title can be used by all the students in a classroom. So what it's really required by the European Accessibility Act. The Accessibility Act will require that is in place an accessible digital publishing ecosystem where all the elements of the process refer to are accessible. So a person should be able to browse a catalog and choose a title they want to read, and read this title on different devices with different reading apps, having information of the specific characteristic of the title. If they have to buy the title, they should have the possibility to access a website and to access an e-commerce, and also to buy in payment solution that is fully accessible in autonomy. So without having the need of someone helping in this process. So it's not only the issue of producing content that are accessible, but it's also to create an environment where all the action that a user has to do, it can be done in accessible way. We have prepared a short schema in which we describe which are the role and which are the obligation for every actor in the value chain. Certification, it's important because in this environment, it should be clear for any actor of the value chain that the fact is accessible. So the publisher should create accessible publication following guidelines and in line with the standard specification. They should verify or ask someone else, a third party, to certify the accessibility of their publication. And the same, and this information is very important, for example, for the digital distributor or aggregator, because, for example, in the Accessibility Act, it is possible for a distributor or aggregator to decide not to distribute a content that is not accessible. So if it's a certified title, the distributor or aggregator will have a much easier task to decide if to distribute or not a title. The same information and the same clear evidence of accessibility will be very important also for the information that are available, for example, in the books in print catalog, where it could be possible to have a clear overview of all the titles that are accessible and all the titles that are accessible and certified. And this will be, for example, very important for the Accessibility Act, but also can be useful also in the view of the implementation of the Marrakesh Treaty, and as much as the publishers start producing born accessible publication and declare their accessibility, I think it will be important to avoid the duplication of creation of other accessible publication in different situations. The same important role will be for the digital bookstore and digital library, where is the place where normally end user goes to search and buy or access the content. And so it will be really important to have the information about the certification also in this environment. And this could be done with displaying the logo of the third party who made the certification, but also displaying the metadata describing all the accessibility feature that a title have. And the same situation is also possible in the reading solution or in the let's say proprietary platform, where the for example in the educational market it's important because a lot of publisher or aggregator have platform where you can browse the catalog, and also in this case it will be important to have information about the accessibility and to have a clear evidence of the fact that this thanks to the certification evidence that this title comply with the legal and technical requirement. It's there are so far we have seen different possible approach in the certification, in the different approach of the certification. We, for example, as LIA, we make certification title by title. That means that we check every title that the publisher sent to us with the agreement that we have with our members. And this is, for us, we believe this is quite important, especially because it's a certain independent certification process, and also because it's useful for the small, medium-sized organization who don't have an internal workflow, who manage the production and who can be able to check the accessibility of all the title. There is another approach, that the one used by Benetech, that is to certify the process and to check, to train the publisher organization, and then to check some of the title they have produced, and if the title are compliant with the requirement, then the certification is not given to the title, but it's given to the organization. I think this is a very interesting approach. In my opinion, is more suitable for bigger organization because you need to have internal people who are able to follow all the process and to do this kind of checking of the accessibility. Then there is the web approach that is slightly different. The web certification is older than document and ebook certification, because start some years ago, especially in the field of public organization. The different issue with web is that you can have the certification, but it should be an ongoing certification, because web normally change very often. And so what is important is not that you check the accessibility at one moment, but you also need to verify that the certification is maintained also if there are changes, update, new content. And so what it's normally done in the web environment is an ongoing certification process that could be done could be every month, every week, depending of the frequency of the changes in the content. What is really needed to make a certification? To make a certification, you need to verify that the requirement of technical standard or legal requirement that are normally in any case based on technical standard are considered. The most important standard that is on the basis of almost all the content that we are speaking is the WCAG, that is a standard managed by the W3C, and it can apply for the website, for the e-commerce, that is a special kind of website, but also in the digital publication, there are some guidelines that are ePub accessibility guideline that are right now the reference for the requirement for the accessibility of ePub content. There are some requirement also for apps and also for reading solution that is that are in any case based on the WCAG, plus some other guidelines that are produced by the DAISY, because reading solution have some quite specific feature that can be better verified following the DAISY guideline. So when we certify, or any other organization certify a title or the website, what is required is to verify that all the specification described in the guideline or in the standard are correctly implemented. There are two other elements that are the metadata. That is another part of the certification process. It is also something that is very useful for the end user to know, because what you certify can be described then in these two standards. Onyx, if you want to describe the accessibility information in the distribution value chain, or schema.org if you want to put the information about the accessibility feature inside the digital publication that you produce. So the two different standards are not competing, but are should be integrated one with the other one. So, and I think this is another very important point, especially with the implementation of the European Accessibility Act, where the fact that metadata on accessibility are also compulsory. The other possibility to show the fact that you have certified the process or the content is to put a logo aside of the content that you produce. These are three different logos. One is the LIA one that we display in our website and is titled by Talto. The logo with the man is the VitalSource logo, and VitalSource displays this information in their catalog, where if the title are accessible, you can know that the title is accessible because you find this logo and also the metadata. And the third one is the Benetech one, that is the global certified accessibility. That is the one that I explained before is normally used when you certify the process that the publishing house follow to produce accessible content. I leave to Gregorio the description of web certification and some more detailed information on what is needed to check to be certified. Thank you.
Thank you, Cristina. Yeah, just an introduction to what we mean by web certification. Actually, we don't really certify websites because, as Christina said, websites are live things, so they change every day usually if they are dynamic websites, and also the content can change and so on. So what we do usually is to create a fully accessible website and then to check periodically new contents, new pages, new features of the websites to be sure that they are fully accessible, so that new features, new developments don't break the accessibility features that we made with the developers. So when we work on the accessibility of website, we start with a first audit where we check the website or the app as is, to check all the issue related to accessibilities. Then we help the developers and the designers to understand how to fix those issues, and to really understand what accessibility means by a training. So we do the training and we help on fix the accessibility issues. And then we make another audit to check if the work done was correct or not. Usually it takes 2 or 3 iterations to start from a non-accessible website or non-accessible app to a fully accessible website or to a fully accessible app. And then after that, we program some periodically audit to check that everything works correctly, even 1 year later or 2 years later, and so on. There is also another possibility to outsource all the accessibility problems. We have a partner we work with that they only put a small JavaScript in the website, and they make the website fully accessible for you. So using this accessibility JavaScript, the accessibility JavaScript interacts with your contents and makes automatically your contents accessible. Actually, it is not automatically, it is made by developer, but you don't have to change your code because it's their fault to make it fully accessible. So in this way is you fix the accessibility issues, or the other way, our partner fix the accessibility issues, you can get a fully accessible website, which is really, really important for getting more and more public, more and more users to your website, but also it will be a requirement by the European Accessibility Act for online bookstores and for reading solutions. One important thing for both the audit and certification of websites and for the certification of ePubs is how we work. We start with some automatic checks using some tools that provides us some checks about the accessibility problems found in the code, which means usually HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So with these tools, we check all the content and we get a list of issues. But then we make another check, which is manual, and we go deep in the code to check if there are any other problems that were not visible before. And as a third part, we make some user experience tests, which are the most important for us, because only working together with visually impaired testers, we can really put ourselves in their shoes to be sure that all the websites works. Because we have found different times that some websites or contents that follows all the WCAG's requirements and get a great score on all different automatic tools, then sometimes are not usable by a user with visual disabilities, because maybe they have some user experience issues that are not addressed by only following the technical resources and technical specifications. This is why I'm using this meme, which the author is Romain, who is the actual developer of ePub check. So automatic accessibility testing is not enough. We always need some manual check, and many times we also need end users testings. So we have a team of skilled testers. It is really important that they are skilled, because they have to know how to use assistive technologies, and they have to understand if the issues is related to the assistive technology or to the content or to the website. So we have to go deep and to understand where the problem is, because accessibility is a chain of different blocks where you have the operative system, you have the assistive technology, you have for example, the Braille display, and you have the content. And so all the different pieces of this chain have to be accessible, and they have to fully communicate one between the others, because if something is broken, then you will lose every content. So it is really important to have testers that are skilled. And it is important to know that more than 56% of organizations do not test their products and services with disabled end users. So the certification of accessibility is not only a matter of standards and specifications, because also some of these requirements are not really technical, but they are more on high-level requirements. And so also the approaches to how to meet those requirements can be different. And in this way, being able to check the different approaches with end users, it's really a great thing for making a fully accessible website or app. And another important thing, it is that accessibility means user experience. And so making a fully certification of accessibility means making a fully certification of user experience on the website. In fact, when we do those kind of certification, we sometimes find bugs related to broken links, related to forms that doesn't work, because we check all the different things and we find those little bugs that are hidden in the software. And so for us, it is really essential to work side by side with accessibility experts with different disabilities, because we check the contents and the websites and the apps with different testers to meet all the different disabilities, visual disabilities. And instead, for ePub certification, it is a little bit different, because since ePubs are publications, so usually when you publish an ePub, it is a finished product that you decide to publish. So in this case, we check that product that is not really dynamic, and so it is static. And in this way, we can certify and be sure that that static product, it is fully accessible. So for the ePub certification, we developed an internal checklist back in 2011, far before the other checklist, the other guidelines available for digital publishing. And we did it following the WCAG, so adapting the web content accessibility guidelines to our content that were ePub files. Then it comes the ePub accessibility guidelines from the DAISY and the EDPF, and then they are now in the W3C world. And so with these new specifications and requirements that are based on WCAG, we modified also our internal checklist. So right now, as LIA, we certify ebooks following the ePub accessibility guidelines. And so the certification of ebooks, it's like a funnel where you start with an ePub, a published ePub, and usually the author or the content creator sends an ePub to a third party, or it can run the certification itself. And we usually start with the ePub check. So with the ePub check, we check that the ePub has no any errors. If the ePub has only one error, then we reject the file. So the accessibility, if the ePub check doesn't pass without any errors, then there can be problems. But also for online distributors and aggregators, if you have a broken ePub, you cannot distribute it. So it is the same. Then we check the ePub with ACE. You know, ACE is the tool developed by the DAISY, which is really useful for checking a lot of automatic things inside of ePubs. ACE can find some issues automatically, but there are some others that can only be checked by a human controller. For example, ACE can check if all the images have an alternative description, but then it cannot check if the alternative description is meaningful or not. And so after the ePub check, after the ACE check, and after the human check, where we check code by code, file by file, all the HTML and CSS content, we can say if the ePub is accessible or not. And for saying it, we use a checklist where we mark all the requirements, if they are passed or not, or if they are not applicable in case they are not available. And so we check color contrast, we check the semantic structure of the content, the image descriptions, the internal links, the table of contents, the tables, the reading order. We do all those checks, and for every check we compile a checklist. And with this checklist, we automatically create metadata. So from the checklist, we create metadata both in Onyx and in schema.org format. And the metadata are the certification. So the certification actually, the report of the certification actually is in the metadata. We also host a certification report on our website so that the user can always check online if that file is accessible or not. But the great value is within the metadata. So within the metadata, we have all the different features available in the file. I think I'm running out of time, so I finished my part.
So we may have some time for question or comments, if there is any.
Yes, there are many questions, in fact. So I will start. Which complications might you see arising from the intersection, if we speak about accessibility, of the ebook, the content, and the reading platform? Because two are totally interconnected. So what can you say about that? Because you certify the content only.
Yes, we certify the content, and also the reading solution should be certified. So also the reading solution should be accessible. It's very important to have a clear distinction about who is responsible for what. So this is why we create the schema, because publisher must be responsible for the certification and accessibility of the content. And if the reading solution is not accessible, it's an issue of the reading solution. This is very clear described, for example, in the Accessibility Act. At the beginning of the work that we have done, we have a lot of discussion because we started doing this process in collaboration with an organization in Italy who is a blind organization. And we send them the file and they say it's not possible. And then we found that the issue was the reading solution. So I think that the area of reading solution is really important. And this is why I think that the work that you are doing in EDR Lab is really important, because you are really working in taking accessibility as one of the main elements of the production of reading solution. And I think this is really a very important topic.
Yes, and another piece is the assistive technology, because
Yes.
different assistive technology have different levels of developments right now. So maybe you develop a website or an application that works perfectly with one assistive technology, but then it can be broken with others. So it's really a long chain and you have to check a lot of things.
I've got another question from Milia. When you were speaking about user testing and that you are in your team, you've got people with disabilities, print disabilities. Is it people who are inside LIA, or do you collaborate with other organizations or companies to get UX testers?
No, we have, at the beginning, we work with the Italian Blind Union, and we now have a stable, it's not full-time employment of LIA, but we have a stable group of people that we work together since the beginning, because it's important to have people who understand also the part of the work that we do. So it's important to work with blind and visually impaired people, but they also need to understand which are the technical part. So they are also skilled in understanding what does it mean to make a testing. They have a methodology. And so when we do the testing, we have a process that we follow with them. So it's important to have skilled people. That means also the tester should be aware of all the work we do. So we have some people that will work in a stable way, not every day, but they are stable when we do the testing, and we have organized a methodology with them.
Yeah, and one important thing with testers is that with them, usually we don't test only single pages or other things that we can test maybe partially automatically and partially checking the code, but with them we usually test processes, because it is within the processes that you usually find the biggest problem you can have in accessibility, and not within the single page, the single content.
Sure.
And also we test with blind, visually impaired, and dyslexic people, depending of the kind of content or the need. Then it's clear that there are some recursive issue. So we don't need to test everything every time. For example, for the books, it's much easier than for the website, because if you have the same kind of books, the situation is more or less. This is why we can test title by title, because if you don't have a very complex math book or a very complex textbook with a lot of images or columns or a complex reading order, the situation is more or less the same. So we can quite easily do without having the testing for each title with a blind visually impaired user. Maybe we do a work at the beginning, but now we don't test every title with blind visually impaired people, while with the website, we normally involve them.
So it was in fact a question from Jens. He said, if I understand correctly, there is a workflow. Then a workflow can make the best effort to build an accessible ePub, but in the end, there will always be manual testing. So you say manual testing, not always, in fact. Sometimes you can miss it.
No, we have a manual testing for the file, for example, for the description of the images. That cannot be done in automated way. But in that case, we don't have visually impaired people who does this work. We do internally in LIA. We do more testing with with a visually impaired user, especially for the website.
Sure.
That is different from one site to another one, so you need to check more. But for the book, we have a workflow, and we do internally.
Great. A very generic question this time, because we are in a time of pandemic. And the question is, what do you think will be the biggest game changer for inclusive publishing after this pandemic in the coming years? Does it impact this pandemic, the work you are doing, the people you are working with or working for?
I think that one of the biggest issue will be the area of education, because with all the students that had to be home and using devices and so on, that is an area where really not having the accessible content or platform will make a big difference. Because if you cannot access the content or the platform is not accessible, you cannot study. So, and you are young, so it's more difficult for you. So I think this is an area that will probably, we are now working with some educational publishers that move in this area, educational and academic, because they are starting to work on the platform to make them accessible.
And from our point of view, for the work we do, it is really difficult for us to make tests with end users testers remotely, because we usually do them side by side. And so to do them remotely, we have to connect via Zoom and to check their assistive technology. And so we have to make, it is quite difficult to check websites and apps remotely, but we are doing it. So we are okay, but it's quite difficult. It takes a lot of time.
And the other game changer, I think, is the Accessibility Act, because when the Accessibility Act is in place, that will be by 2025, it's not a goodwill but it will be a legislation. So I think that it will be useful to start thinking now, because it won't be just pushing a button and have accessible content. So I think it will be, it's some knowledge that you have to acquire, and I think it will be important to do it in advance.
Which leads us to the next questions for Marianne. She's a content creator. She produces ePub 3. These ePub 3 are valid versus ePub Check and ACE. So what is her next step in order to become certified?
It depends on the complexity of the file. I mean, if they are simple text, I think that most of the work is done. If they are more complex text, probably there is something else from the manual point of view that should be done.
So she has to come to you or to Benetech, to one of the few companies or organizations ready to certify content, and make a deal with you, in fact.
Yes, we normally do with the publisher. We have an agreement that they become member of the foundation, and then we certify their title. We have an automated process that the title are sent by the aggregator or the distributor directly with our platform, and then we certify and we produce the metadata as well.
Actually, technically, you can self-certify your ePubs. So you can say that they are fully accessible. So in that case, if she is a freelance, I don't know, maybe she can improve her knowledge in accessibility, and so try to self-certify her ebooks if they are quite simple. If they make them, if they are complex, maybe she need an external help for certifying them.
But what I think it's important as an external third-party certification is that you can be sure and it's a clear logo or a clear metadata that you can display. So if she then can send us an email, we can speak with her.
Okay. By the way, in the Onyx metadata, is there the logo, the JPEG logo of the certifier, or only the name or URI or something?
There is a name of the organization. There is a specific field where you can fill and then when we provide the information that has been certified by us, there is an automated way where you can display the logo.
And there is the URL pointing to the certification report that is hosted, for example, on our website. So you have this report online that we host and we manage, where you have all the accessibility features of that file. So you have this URL.
Okay, and so also a question for Marianne. Okay, she wants to have her content certified, but it's in Danish. It could be in Chinese also. Okay, what do your team can do, the manual team, with that? Because they don't understand the language.
For this, Gregory is better you answer.
No, I'm not good in foreign languages.
For the structural, I think it's no issue. For the description and the
description, yes,
the content, it's required some kind of specific knowledge.
We could hope that there is a Danish certifier that comes one day, or somebody in the north who manages the
we are trying to set up a project to have because what we would like to avoid is that there are so many different slightly forked certification process. So we are trying to work on a European project on that.
Okay. And it was a question I have also. You say that because ELIA is certifying title per title, well, it's good for small publishers, and what Benetech makes, certifying a process, is good for big publishers. Does it mean that as LIA, you leave all big publishers to Benetech?
No, we work also with the big publishers. So we make the same, we have all the biggest publisher in Italy. So they ask us to certify. It's a different point of view. We may also, and probably in the future, we will also do some kind of certification of the process. But in our experience, then it's not always the case that if you certify one title once, there is another supplier. Then the really difference is that if you want to do like Benetech, you need to have an internal organization who manage all the process. Because then you have to check everything inside. Mm. Because you must be responsible of the certification of the, not the certification, of the check-in process. And I know some organizations do, and it's very well done. So it's probably a strategic choice. It's, we do also for Mondadori, for example, or Rizzoli, the most important Italian publisher, ask us to make the certification for them.
And we are quite quick certifying ebooks because we have all the infrastructure, we have this software that manages all the workflow. So we are quite good doing it, and we can certify hundreds and hundreds of titles per month. eventually thousands if it's needed. So we are quite good at it.
It's clear that if you want to work on, for example, educational books, the fee and the cost is different, because we have to check more things.
More things. And by the way, when you said that the end result of the certification, in fact, is the ONIX metadata. Good. Does it mean that, and you said also that people could auto-certify, self-certify their stuff. Does it mean that at the end, by 2025, we will find ebooks distributed, some with the certification from a third party, some self-certified with ONIX metadata, which say, I am good?
I don't think this will work, because the European Accessibility Act say that it could be some certification organizations. So I think it will be a better solution to have someone else certifying your content.
Yeah, also because
it's like the quality insurance logo or the SAE logo that you put on the toys or other thing. I think it will be something. It's not defined yet, but I think it will be also, because you have a defined, clear evidence.
Yeah.
And also because, let's say, if you are a distributor and someone say that they are self-certified, then the distributor should check again. So you need also to have some kind of trusted organization who can really take the responsibility of the certification. And if you have to work on numbers, so you have to send 100 title, 200 title to a distributor, this distributor must be sure that the organization who certify is trusted, so they don't have to do the work again. So this is the other important thing. If you have every self-published author, let's say, who want to certify by themselves, I think that the distributor will have a lot of work to do. So I don't know how may work in that case.
And these third parties, so these certifying organizations, which must be trusted, who will trust them? I mean, who makes them a trusted party?
I mean,
right now,
it's something that you create and construct, because if we certify something and then a user found that it is not accessible, we have troubles, we have problems with that, and so in that case we are in charge of being sure that what we do is super correct.
Okay, so it means that in fact everybody can become a certification body, but will be trusted not only by diplomas or states, it will be trusted by people.
Yeah, actually, this is how it works in the United States. So you have to make your website fully accessible, and a third party can say that it is fully accessible, can do all the checks. But then if an end user found a problem, it will send you a letter by a lawyer saying that you have some problems with your accessibility. And so in that case, it is trusted by end users.
Good. Well, I think that we've gone through all the questions. So thank you very much. We are at the end of the time. Exactly. Perfect. Thank you very much, Gregorio. Thank you very much, Christina. I hope the attendees had an interesting time. And rendezvous next week for new daily sessions.
Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks. Bye. Stay safe.